Well, some Democrats in the Senate vowing to fight President Trump's nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court. Last night, he nominated 10th Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Neil Gorsuch, who lives and works in Denver. Gorsuch, one of 21 possible choices listed by the now president during his campaign. If confirmed, he would replace the late conservative lion of the court, Antonin Scalia, who, of course, died last year.
I took the task of this nomination very seriously. I have selected an individual whose qualities define, really, and I mean closely define, what we're looking for. Judge Gorsuch has outstanding legal skills, a brilliant mind, tremendous discipline, and has earned bipartisan support. When he was nominated to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, he was confirmed by the Senate unanimously. Also, that's unanimous. Can you believe that nowadays with what's going on?
At age 49, Gorsuch, the youngest nominee to the Supreme Court in 25 years, a graduate of Columbia, Harvard Law, Oxford. He was a clerk to two justices on the Supreme Court, the late Byron White and Anthony Kennedy, who is still on the court. 2006, President George W. Bush appointed him to the Court of Appeals in Denver. He distinguished himself there as a solid conservative and supporter of religious freedom, also wrote a book stating his case against assisted suicide laws. Dale Carpenter teaches constitutional law at Southern Methodist University's Dedman School of Law. So he's called an originalist. What is that in legal terms? And how would he view the world differently than someone who is not an originalist, whatever that is?
In simplest terms, I think an originalist refers to a justice who interprets the Constitution according to the text of the Constitution as it would have been understood at the time it was passed. So to put it in simplest terms, to give you an example, take the issue of the death penalty and whether that's constitutional. An originalist would ask, does it seem like the text of the Constitution warrants that? And what would the people at the time of the ratification of the Constitution thought about the constitutionality of the death penalty? And probably they would say, then it's constitutional because the people at the time would have thought it was acceptable. A living constitutionalist, however, on the other hand, would say, well, how is the death penalty actually applied in this country? And that person would be concerned about things like racial disparities and may come to the conclusion that, in fact, as we practice it today, 200 years later, it's unconstitutional.
Okay, so no doubt in your mind he's a conservative. He would not be, if he were to change from a conservative, he would not be the first one. We've had a history of a couple of them. In fact, one of his mentors, Justice Kennedy, who's still on the court, was thought to be a conservative. He's turned into a moderate.
That's right. I mean, there's no guarantee once someone has a lifetime appointment how they're going to vote in future cases. And in fact, very often presidents appoint someone to the court thinking one thing or with one thing in mind, but they don't think in terms of the range of other issues that those justices will face, and it's very difficult to predict sometimes how they'll react.
Assuming he is in fact the rock-ribbed conservative that he is being portrayed as, what are some of the issues on which he could tip the current balance of the court?
Well, keep one thing in mind overall, and that is that as a justice, he will likely be there for perhaps a generation, maybe 30 years at the age of 49. So he will, in effect, continue the conservative hold on that seat, which would otherwise have gone to a more liberal justice if President Obama had had his way last year. On specific issues, it's quite possible in the near term he would not shift any major issues, nothing like abortion or affirmative action in the next year or two. That would await a future appointment by President Trump. But he could shift the court on some issues like the collection of collective bargaining fees by public employee unions, which have been under threat. And he could have an effect on environmental policy in the United States. He's been very distrustful of the actions of administrative agencies that act on behalf of the executive branch. So President Trump could find that, surprisingly, he's not always with the administration.
If in fact President Trump serves his 4 years or even 8 years, it's very likely he's going to have 1, 2, maybe 3 more appointments to the Supreme Court.
Highly likely. On average, a president gets 2 appointments to the court during even 1 term. 2 terms, he's looking at more like 3 or probably 4 seats at that point. And in this case, we've got 3 justices who are quite up there in years. We've got Justice Ginsburg, a liberal who's 83, Justice Kennedy, who's a swing vote conservative, who's 80, and Justice Breyer, a liberal justice, who's 78.
So could be a lot more action. This could be just the beginning for President Trump and his appointments. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.
We appreciate it.